Yo, my name is Alpha Omega. I'm an English VTuber, and that focuses mostly on various gaming content, and more often than not, speedrunning games in the Splatoon series. This is Splatoon 2 Octo expansion, 90% no death abuse, the main category for the 2018 DLC by the same name, and this is going to be my submission for Games Done Quick. Summer Games Done Quick 2023 as part of the Splatoon speedrunning community's relay race. So, Splatoon 2 Octo expansion was released in the summer of 2018, about a year after the initial launch of Splatoon 2, and was the first paid DLC to be included in the Splatoon series. It's around a 1 hour 10-minute run, as is the exact time of this personal best run of mine, and focuses mostly on getting from the very beginning, more specifically the character selection screen, to beating the final boss, the Nils statue. First up, we're going to have the tutorial room here, and it's going to be very simple. Go straight forward, hit a grappling link, grapple link, whatever you want to call them, with the bomb to skip a little bit of movement, and then head back out until we get more introductory dialogue. Some more about myself. I've been speedrunning this category for about a year on and off now, between both summer jobs and speedrunning Splatoon 3, which is being submitted by other members of our community and was previously featured at Awesome Games Done Quick 2023 by the runner Lantro. Some more info about Splatoon 2 Octo expansion that I hadn't mentioned already. It was previously run at Awesome Games Done Quick 2019 by American runner Tones Balones, where he had who at the time I believe was the current world record holder, and finished the run with it in an hour and 12 minutes flat. So coming up now, we have our first meeting with the telephone. This is the main character that we'll be reporting back to after we collect each of the 4 things, which is essentially the 4 checkpoints of our run. We'll see it about 40 minutes into the run. I forget the exact time. But this character is, well, they're trying to kill us. Spoiler alerts. It's an evil AI created specifically so that it can kill humanity. It's a bit of a weird one, but hey, it's Splatoon. It's gonna be weird. We've had space kaiju fights between a giant salmon and a giant bear. We're used to this in this community. So coming up next, we have the main train that will basically act as our overworld for the game. If you've seen the more recent Splatoon 3, you'll know that there is a lot of overworld movement that we have to do to go between levels, and is where most of the time save in that run comes from, along with just having extremely short levels and some sizable skips that we've discovered. The big thing with Octo expansion is that it is extremely linear in terms of a speedrun. But I personally find that it is the most enjoyable run of any of the Splatoon 90%, mostly because it is a true test of basically the player's skill overall. It's a category that takes absolutely no crap from anyone, and any mistake could likely result in a time loss of upwards of 30-40 seconds. This is the conductor of, or one of several conductor sea cucumbers that we will be seeing, that will be guiding us around. We confirmed through the lore that, yeah, it's not just one, it's multiple. And we are departing off to our first level of the run, AO5. AO5 is basically a second tutorial and introduces us to sanitization. Sanitized Octolings, or Octarians as we see, are essentially if I can remember my lore correctly here, the failed test subjects of Boat Corporation, the organization that basically runs the Deep Sea Metro. And here we see a sanitized Octoling. Unlike normal Octolings, they are a very bright green color, and they want to, well, kill us. But thankfully, we have good bomb tech and aim, and yeah, we're just overall very familiar with this run. It's a very simple first level. Basically, we have to kill 4 enemies over 3 different checkpoints, and from there, we just get to the goal. This next enemy is probably the hardest of any of them, because it is a dualies Octoling that can roll out of the way and also has an inkjet. Normally, we have a pretty standard method of getting to kill them, but unfortunately didn't get it there. But it didn't end up losing me all that much time because I learned tech more recently that is closer to my normal personal best. In my previous submission, I was playing on the Spanish version of the game. Spanish actually saves 3 seconds over English, but at this point in how I've been running, I'm like, okay, not that big of a deal to save 3 seconds. I'll just play in English. Here we meet the main idol duo of Splatoon 2, Pearl and Marina, otherwise known as Off the Hook. They're essentially hacking into Captain Cuttlefish's radio and telling us, hey, we're here to help you out. We never use their help, aside from at the very end of the run. They're basically there for side commentary. In the true 90% run, we use them a little bit more. They are able to allow us to skip levels if we die a certain number of times on them. However, seeing as this is the no death abuse category, that feature is not permitted. Coming up next is AO6, our first sign of a global cycle in this speedrun. More specifically, I would argue this is one of the hardest global cycles to hit, maybe outside of the Fast Escape 3 phase. So essentially what we're trying to do is get to a certain cycle with the with the sweeper we see out in the distance there, because we're trying to grab a key that allows us to, and more specifically, try and dodge this ink furler, which I do end up hitting, but thankfully still able to grab the key and get over to the vault that I need to get to relatively quickly. I did lose some time there to breaking my armor, which, unlike Splatoon 1, doesn't instantly kill you, it just slows you down significantly and takes time to recover. Here, this Octo Sniper kind of is a danger to us, but not really. We know how he aims and that we can basically just move out of the way. Here we have more ink spinners. I don't know what they're called. I just speedrun this video game. Get my armor broken again. But another neat feature about Splatoon is that, or at least Splatoon 2 Octo expansion, is that when you get to a checkpoint, your armor automatically heals. So we generally, if in this case, we use that to instantly heal ourselves back up and go back to full movement speed, allowing us to finish relatively quickly. We don't see that many global cycles overall in this run, but there are still a few that we have to worry about, or maybe not worry about, but, you know, pay attention to, make sure that we're doing, make sure that we're hitting the cycles that we need to. Another example of a global cycle is AO7 Maverick Station. This is actually going to be the first major skip of our run, known simply as Maverick Skip. The main gimmick with this level is that we have one of the multiplayer specials, the Inkjet, for an unlimited amount of time. And basically what that allows us to do is hover a certain distance above the ground. Now, as you can see here, by using certain points of geometry within the level, we're able to boost ourselves up and cross gaps that we're normally not supposed to, resulting in us being able to get to a checkpoint, the final checkpoint, much faster than we were normally intended to. While we do die there to reach that checkpoint, it's not reachable by surviving as far as we know. It does not count as death abuse because it's not the automatically skip a level by dying X number of times. That is what that distinction is in the category. Coming up next is CO3 AO8 Station, the first 8-ball level of the run. For those who have played Octo expansion, 8 balls are known as some of the most difficult level types throughout the entire game. But as speedrunners, we've been able to figure out how exactly these interesting game mechanics work. Essentially, the game calculates the distance between the angle between you and the center of the ball, and no matter where you shoot on the ball, the line that goes between you two is the line that it will go on. So essentially, basically, no matter where you shoot, it's all down to how you're angled. that does mean that we slightly understand how the 8 balls work a little bit more, but they're still not cooperative at the best of times. Thankfully, don't end up dying on this station, and have actually a surprisingly good end to the level. The big thing that people dislike about this level, especially within the speedrun community, is not the first half, or the majority of this level, it's this last checkpoint. If the 8 ball goes into any of these walls, as you can see, it gets a massive speed boost and basically starts bouncing between the two, as you can see there. If it hits this back wall, it goes really far back very quickly. Thankfully, I was able to avoid that and get the 8 ball into its goal, passing the test, no deaths. And while not hitting my gold, by no means was it a bad level for me, saving, 7 out of a possible 16 seconds. I just come off of a run where I died twice in that level, so felt good to get past that level and through that level with, relative ease. Coming up next is it's the introduction of Isopadre. He plays no effect in this run other than 2 cutscenes that give us a little bit of time to breathe. Normally speaking, when you complete a line, completing all the levels on it, you can go to him and get a reward for the multiplayer. It's mostly gear that you can use online. But seeing as we're speedrunners and we don't care about online, we ignore him. So, it is what it is. Up next is CO2 Shrinking Station. This is the first and only instance of a limited ink level in the run. Basically, we start off, I believe, with 34 available shots, and we cannot run out of those by the time we get to the goal. If we do run out, we die instantly and get sent back to the very beginning. It's not super precise. As you can see, I'm firing pretty regularly here, but it is still a very nervous part of the run because, especially with this last enemy, they can ruin you at any moment. Thankfully, get through with no issues. I think I had a shot left, so a little bit risky there, but hey, I made it through. Up next is DO6 CO1 station. I believe this is Radical Rails station. It's another station. It's another level in the run with a global cycle, and again, it's pretty difficult to nail down exactly. As you can see, we have boxes, targets, I think they are called in the game, spinning around a set path, and we have, I believe, 60 seconds, yes, to break all of them. And our goal in general is to break as many of these boxes in a row as we can. As you can see, I'm pre-firing some of these because I know where they're going to be, and, well, I just shoot them, and that's the level. The main box that we have to worry about is this one in the middle, since it is a large orange box. It has a lot more health than these smaller green boxes that we can destroy instantly. But thankfully, another solid level. Did lose 0.3 seconds to my personal best, but not that big of a deal in the end. Up next is my first, you could argue, major mistake of the run, and that is in Target Buster Station, DO7. Normally in this level we use the ink brush, but by accident, I believe I accidentally select the Octo brush here. While the ink brush is the faster weapon here, it does not provide enough. The time difference between the two does not warrant going back into the menu and selecting ink brush. We timed it. It is still fast. If you happen to select Octo brush by accident, it's better to eat that slight time loss than go back into the menu and select ink brush. And the main reason for this is that Octo brush actually deals more damage per swipe than the ink brush does. So these boxes here, a little bit easier to hit. And we have a fairly tight time limit here. Normally, top level runners tend to finish that with over 5 seconds left. There, I had about 3.6 left on the timer. So, not my best run, but, it is what it is. It's a full game run. These aren't ILs. Coming up next is what many casual or non-speedrunners might consider the most difficult level in the entire DLC, and that is JO3-DO8 Girl Power Station. Essentially, we have to defend an orb for, I believe it is 90 seconds, against Octarians, or Octolings specifically. And more specifically, 14 of them in 2 waves of 7. Thing is, they're all cycle based, so we know exactly where these Octolings are going to spawn, and we know when they're going to spawn, at least in the second wave. So what that means is that this actually becomes probably one of the easiest levels in the entire run. I do have an armor right there, which is not ideal in the slightest, because normally I have a chance. I have a chance of dying. Thankfully, despite losing my armor there and being one hit away from death by the roller getting a very lucky flick onto me, able to take down the Brella without them hitting me again, so run stays alive. This next wave of enemies will spawn with 44 seconds left on the clock, and basically they spawn in the 3 edges of the arena first. So you can see one there. Up next is the next Octo shot. And then finally we have the blaster, which we're able to take down. Just remember, it's 15 enemies total, 7 and then 8. Take care of those 2, and then prep for the final wave, which spawns in with about 21 seconds left. Take out the dualies, ink my feet, go towards the roller, get them, and then, yes, wall friend. This is the only enemy that we don't actually have to kill, because its AI has absolutely no idea what to do if we're sitting on top of this box, and it just doesn't kill the orb. I also let it splash down me there because it doesn't kill me instantly, and there's absolutely no risk in that in the slightest. Coming up next, we have JO2 Match Master Station. This is what speedrunners would consider the hardest level in the entire run, or at least one of them at the very least. More specifically because we have to match the statue on the left with the boxes on the right by using the weapon that explodes at the end of its shots, the Rapid Blaster Pro. It's in the class of weapons known as blasters, and their main gimmick is that they shoot out a pellet of ink that explodes after a certain distance. And that explosion, which we call sparking, in this level, if we happen to get a spark, there's a 90% chance that the level is over. Thankfully, we have blaster routes that take care of all the boxes in a very methodical fashion, and it's a lot of times, you know, newer runners will spend, I would argue upwards of 2-3 hours just practicing this level just for, you know, a solid mid 2 minute time. I got very nervous seeing that box remaining there because I know I have a shot to do later. There's one instance of a spark not killing the run, or a sparked shot not ending the run. We know that one doesn't end up doing anything. Got a really weird interaction there, only breaking one box. Not very common. End up missing this shot here, but it's not that big of a deal as I can just do it from the second position. And then 3 shots, very risky, but, you know, we're used to it. We take these risks because, well, we go fast. And finally here, we have a fun trick that we can do in cutscenes. So if you hit a grappling before cutscene starts, your momentum will actually carry through. And as you saw there, you just get teleported back to, or essentially dragged back to the grappling you jumped to. So while not my best JO2 of all time, or Matchmaster Station, you know, still staying about 10 seconds ahead of my personal best. So a very good right side to start. Coming up next is the only boss fight of the Metro section of the run, and this is the Octo Shower, or whatever they call it in this. The main gimmick behind this one is that the Octo Shower is actually a boss fight from the hero mode of the game, the first single player. Normally, in the hero mode, you'd be fighting it with a charger. Its attacks are a bit slower and just a little bit easier to hit with a slower weapon like the charger. In Octo expansion, however, we get the fun task of beating this boss with the Inkjet, the special weapon that we saw in Maverick Station. Uh, Thankfully, the hardest phase of this is actually the first phase, because we have no way of knowing which direction that the Octo Shower is going to go. In waves 2 and 3, we do actually know where it's going to go, and as a result, we have tech that allows us to take it down in probably about 5 seconds total, maybe closer to 10 depending on who you ask. This is also one of our first RNG manipulations, or just manipulations in general. By going off to the right to start there, we're able to get the boss to set up exactly where we want. This is actually, again, one of my other main mistakes in the run. Missing that shot there loses about 5 seconds because we have to back up and take a second shot at that last Octo Trooper that's holding up the boss. Coming up last, obviously, is the third phase. It's a Nintendo game. Bosses take 3 hits to kill. What a surprise. And the main gimmick added in the third phase is that the Octo Troopers that we're trying to hit can jump around suddenly. Thankfully, it doesn't matter because we know exactly how to manipulate them so that they don't jump out of the way, and we get the fast kill. Between, mostly due to that, subpar second phase, do end up losing time on this split, but not a significant amount of time to where, I need to reset the run. The other big thing to note about this run is that I had a lot of time save in the very later half of the run, and more specifically within the last, 10 minutes or so that isn't auto-scroller. In Escape Phase 6 due to a death in my previous personal best. So I had been playing runs, that were, plus 20 seconds because I knew I had that time save. So, on pretty decent pace, technically, yes, I have already lost 40 seconds to some of best, but no major mistakes, no truly major mistakes so far in this run meant I was feeling good going into the first of our things. This is basically, things in this case, as I mentioned earlier, are what we are trying to collect for the telephone that we met at the start of the run. These are 4 things that we have to collect to progress to the end section of the run, and the route that we are doing is the fastest way to get to those 4 things as quickly and as efficiently as possible. On the left side of the metro, as that's what these two as the 2 sides are. There's 2 on the left, 2 on the right. On the left side, there was a little bit of debate on which route was faster, but it didn't take long for us to figure out which was indeed faster because of a specific level that we don't do in this run because it is extremely slow. Up next is JO4 Station. I believe this is Footloose Station. I don't know all of these off the top of my head. And this is a floating platform made up of destroyable boxes that we have to kill enemies on top of. Not very easy. We actually force spawn these 2 enemies early by going back towards them, because the 2 enemies at the very end spawn very close to here normally, so we're able to just, stay here and get ready to quick kill them. We actually have to pre-fire here because if we didn't, this last enemy would dash away before we can fire off the last shot. And we also need a very specific amount of ink left in order to make sure that we have enough ink to get off that last shot. Because if we don't have enough ink, well, obviously we can't shoot and we can't kill the last enemy. Up next is JO5C14. I forget the name of this station again. I don't know everything about this game. I just go fast in it. Stick Move Station. This is the second, if you want to say major skip of the run. It comes in the last checkpoint of this level where we are just dually rolling along rails while trying to dodge these things that will knock us off. All in all, as cool as the dually rolling tech looks, it's actually very simple. We're just spamming the B button as often as we can because there's no chance of us falling off. We do jump off to the side there because obviously we don't want to die. And then we get to the third and last checkpoint, which is where the skip is. By doing a precisely timed jump, we were able to skip a level there, saving around 10 to 12 seconds, depending on how many dually rolls you get in, and then also having to shoot the target because, well, we don't want to die. So after this, we go to thing 2, which actually closes out the right side of this run. Another thing to note, this gold actually put me in a position to get my first ever sub 26 right side, as we would say a 25, despite it being closer to 26. It's weird. And another interesting thing to note about this level in particular is that this specific split that I have here set the community gold for this thing in particular. Up until this run, it had been held in a 3-way tie, and I beat it by exactly 1 frame because, well, I was going fast on this particular day, and it paid off. But that is the completion of the right side of the metro section of this run, and we will now be moving into left side. Left side is shorter overall than right side, but I think it plays roughly the same number of levels, maybe 1 or 2 less. And the first level that we see on left side is another one of these infinite special levels. This special is the Baller. It's basically what replaced the Kraken special from Splatoon 1 in Splatoon 2, or it was it's a giant hamster ball. We run in a giant hamster ball, to put it simply. This is another level that deals with global cycles, so dying here not only does it, it's a death, it loses you time, but it also means that your cycles are going to be off, because specifically we are looking at these not extremely type jumps, but jumps that we need to focus on in order to, well, save time. That's what speedrunning is all about, after all. But the main global cycle we're going for here is known as left side. Normally, this ink booster curly thing on the left is in our way, but if we go fast enough, we can get it on the right side, saving about half a second. If done ideally, maybe more or less. I am not entirely sure, admittedly. Coming up next is BO1 AO3 Station, and this is the other 8-ball level in the run. There is a route that was done by Tones Ballones, the previous runner of this route, previous runner of this category at SGDQ 2019. And what he did at the time was do the 2 8-ball levels as fast as he could. Technically, it did lose a little bit of time in the menuing, but all in all, it was maybe a second, and at this level, or at the level of Splatoon Octo expansion, 1 second didn't mean all too much in the grand scheme of things. And the main worry in this level is letting the 8-ball fall. If we let it fall off the stage by accident, we are instantly killed by Sea Cucumber and sent back to the last checkpoint. Just like I mentioned in the last level, this is another level based off of global cycles, and this cycle here that I don't actually go for Seesaw Skip, which I will explain quickly. Seesaw Skip is a skip that allows us to, well, we can just shoot the 8-ball over this ramp that we are normally supposed to use a balloon that is behind us to clear. And that involves going up, walking very slowly up some thin platforms and killing an enemy to grab a key to unlock a balloon to shoot it across. But as I mentioned, I did miss a cycle there, but we would consider the cycle I did end up getting as first cycle. The cycle that you saw me wait on is known as zero cycle, and while it is obviously it is faster to get zero cycle, it is extremely tight, and not really recommended for beginners because you're only saving a few seconds at best, and it is extremely risky to go for. This level, AO2, is the only instance that we see of a multiplayer stage in that we see in this run. It's based off of the Rainmaker game mode in Ranked, and more specifically, what we have to do is carry the Rainmaker to the enemy's base. Thankfully, we have a route that allows us to get to the end in 4 shots, because normally you're supposed to try and take these enemies out one by one, and they're supposed to try and threaten you. I do make a mistake here. I fire my penultimate shot a little bit too soon, and it almost kills me, but thankfully I was able to get out of the way of the bomb that was thrown at me in time and survive with broken armor at the very least, and, you know, not lose the run to a stupid mistake like not charging the Rainmaker enough for a full shot. As I mentioned earlier with Isopadre, once you complete a line, you can go talk to him to grab gear for whatever you want to wear on your multiplayer character. We don't care about that in speedruns, we just try to get to the end of the game as fast as possible, so talking to him loses time. Up next is Geo6 Station. I forget the name. Again, I apologize. But this is our second dually squelchers on rails levels. This also has some neat tech. So by dually rolling in midair, we're able to shoot down extremely quickly, saving us time over having to do... there's another trick known as a nollie. Gives us more vertical momentum by holding out a sub-weapon, or horizontal movement, rather. But yes, dually rolling shoots us down through the air faster than falling normally is, so again, it's a bit of a time save. Here we have Octo Snipers. Normally what you're supposed to do is kill them. Rolling there is very risky because if you get armor broken, there's a chance that they kill you. Somehow I get armor broken there, but thankfully because of dually rolls, it doesn't end up mattering in the end. I get just enough momentum to reach the balloon that I need to hit. And finish the level with not quite a gold, I think. I think it was a little bit short of the gold. Yeah. Actually, I was pretty short of the gold, but, 2 seconds. Had broken armor, was playing it a little bit safe. Because I realized, oh, I'm 20 seconds ahead of PB. This is really good pace. Up next is Geo5 Bustalicious Station. And to me, at least, is one of the more visually impressive levels in the run. Essentially, we have a limited amount of time to break 20 of these boxes without popping any balloons. Because if we pop a balloon, not only do we die, but this is also the only level in the run that affords us 1 life per entry. So if we die here, not only do we get a game over screen, since it's our first game over screen of the run, Sea Cucumber talks to us. And that loses even more time. I get an absolutely incredibly lucky bomb there. So we open with a set pattern of 12 boxes. Again, it's another global cycle. This game really likes them. We are able to start off with a set of 12 boxes we normally break, and then we throw a bomb in the vicinity of a few other boxes. Thankfully, I was able to, I believe, pop 7 boxes with 1 bomb, which is extremely rare, and that led to me being able to end the level earlier than normal. Geo4 is I would argue the most like a single player, a hero mode level that we have in this run, since it is essentially get to the end using this gimmick, and that is the ink furlers. There is a skip there that I don't do in the run called furler boost. By getting on the outside of one of these furlers, or more specifically the end that's rolling away, you're able, it basically boosts you forward in the very front, and that would probably save about 2 to 3 seconds. And here is another instance of us using a nollie to skip a little bit of section, or skip a section of what is normally intended pathing. It's a decently risky jump, not too bad, but when you're on good pace, it's one of those things that, like, you do not want to be missing in the slightest. Coming up next is the penultimate thing, Thing 3, and if it hasn't been clear by now, I believe this thing will make it quite obvious what we are actually building in this run. So, it may or may not be well known, but the 4 things that you are collecting build up a thing that is apparently supposed to transport you to what is considered the Promised Land. We, as the audience, assume that to be Inkopolis because that's where, Octolings want to go because reasons and lore. However, if you have not noticed already, we are building a blender. A blender that is going to attempt to kill us. It's pretty dark, I'm not gonna lie. But again, lore, it's a thing. So this here is the customization of Agent 3. Unfortunately, we can't pause the timer and make our own custom Agent 3. We have to keep the run going, and that means going with all default features. If you happen to accidentally menu to one of the things that says no, that loses around 20 seconds because Cuttlefish rips off his piece of paper and entirely doodles a new character. So that loses time. We don't want to lose time. Up next is IO5, and is the last of these burst or hit a certain number of targets while on rails. That's the best way I can describe this. So this is essentially, this is a minute-long auto-scroller, or probably closer to like a minute 20, that if you die on it by like missing a box or hitting one of these ink wheels, I don't know what they're called, you go all the way back to the beginning. So if you happen to die towards the end, say goodbye to your run, because you're not getting it back. But the big thing is we can set cycles here by destroying these boxes at a certain time, and that would allow us to essentially dodge these ones that are moving. I think I could have gotten away with not jumping there, but jumping early there means I'm able to dodge this last one. And at this point, I know I'm on very good pace here. Breathe and go into what I call complete the run mode. So coming up next is IO4. IO4 can't touch this station. This is what I consider to be the most stressful level in the run, because it is over 35 minutes into the run. It is the second to last station that we play in Metro, and it is extremely nerve-wracking. The main gimmick behind this station is that you cannot get hit. And that also means, or rather, maybe not getting hit, but rather you cannot take any damage. And to top it off, these are on global cycles. So even better. So jumping forward, we generally use curling bombs here to help us move forward, because what curling bombs allow us to do is create a path of ink that we can swim in safely, for the most part, and not get noticed by enemies. Or, well, we will get noticed by enemies, but we can pass them. We do have a set route for this, because thankfully it is a pretty, straightforward level. But as you will see, I do have what I would consider my biggest mistake in the run in this level. Normally you full charge there to kill. No, you do double tap. Anyways, here we have the first instance of sort of counting in the run. We count to about half a second to charge up that curling bomb. That allows us to kill all of those octopods in a single curling bomb. If they get close to us, they will explode and deal damage to us, killing us instantly, because that's how this level works. Up here, we have the Octo Sniper, which is constantly threatening us. Thankfully, we're able to just take him out with a single charged shot. Coming up next, we have the requisite curling bomb to get us through here. That guy can possibly hit us. So this is what the instance I mean of going into safe mode. Um, Dying here is one of my biggest fears in any given run, so I'm trying to play it safe by just killing enemies as slowly as I can. And somehow that last enemy hits me at the very edge of its range, losing me about 20 seconds. I think it actually probably closer to 15 because I was playing slower on purpose. Because hey, I'm on good pace, don't want to lose it. Oh hey, I lost it. Because I was playing safe and didn't go for the fast strat, which normally means that last enemy ignores you. So, despite being ahead like up to upwards of 21 seconds, I am now behind about 2 coming out of left side. Um, so, but thankfully, as I mentioned before, I know I have a lot of time save later on in the run. As you can see, my best possible time is still at 109.44. Spoiler alert, I don't get a 109. I actually end up choking it. But this is, but, you know, last level of Metro, aside from the last thing, and it's another auto-scroller. It's 1 minute long, and we have to protect this, just like Girl Power Station, we have to protect this orb against incoming enemies for a set amount of time. Thankfully, these enemies follow a very constant left-right, left-right, or right-left, right-left pattern. Basically mimics the rest of the run in a funny way. Normally, because we know the patterns and where all the enemies are going to be coming from, we do know we can fairly consistently get damageless, as we would say. Not to be confused with the damageless that was the last level, but just damageless as in the orb doesn't take any damage. As you can see, sometimes we're chaining shots to hit multiple enemies with the same shot. Other times we're just taking them off one by one. And as you can see, well, we're through. So, another thing that is, generally seen as one of the more, I don't want to say more important ones, but a good time to shoot for in terms of a metro time for a mid to top tier runner is a 42xx metro leave time, and that is normally measured by when the last on the last fade out when you collect the last thing 4, as you can see, which I am on right now. We do actually have constant split times amongst the top runners, more specifically on the fade outs of each level. We also have a community gold sheet to compare these best times that we've all achieved, and well, compare sums of best to one another's. And as you can see, I just sneak under the 43-minute barrier for a left side exit or a metro exit, and then we get into our first unskippable cutscene of the run. This is about, I want to say, a 2-minute cutscene where the telephone attempts to murder us, but the Agent 3 that we created what was that, like 10 minutes ago, comes to save us. Actually, not even 10 minutes, like 5 minutes ago. Don't know how they got here so fast. Let's see. What else can I talk about in this time? I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. Why do we want to play Splatoon at GDQ again, despite it just being a GDQ 2023? Well, it has been quite a while since Splatoon 1 and distinctly Octo expansion have been shown at a Games Done Quick. It's been, I believe, since 2020 or 2021 for Splatoon 1, I could be wrong on those dates, and since the beginning of 2019 for Octo expansion. Not much has admittedly changed in terms of routing for Octo expansion, but it is still an incredibly technical run that I feel, Games Done Quick audiences would enjoy. On top of that, as I mentioned at the very top of the run, the Splatoon speedrunning community is planning a relay race amongst 2 teams of 4 in the 80% quadfecta multi-game category. Any percent quadrifecta is exactly what it sounds like. The four main any percent categories of each of the 4 single-player campaigns so far in the series history. However, in the February 2023 Nintendo Direct, the Splatoon 3 DLC Side Order was announced as the next single-player campaign within the Splatoon series. As a result, we're basically looking to hype up this brand new release that we expect to be coming sometime around September or early winter. And what better way to do that than with a relay race of the technically speaking, longest 80% category of the entire series. It will be in order: Splatoon 1, Splatoon 2 Hero Mode, Octo Expansion, and 80% No Death Abuse, and then Splatoon 3's Hero Mode, which is the most broken. But going back to Octo Expansion, we are now officially in the escape phase, the escape sequence of the run. This is what you could consider the last third of the run, if you want to consider, each side of the metro taking about 20-ish minutes or around those numbers to complete, and the metro section, or the escape sequence, taking technically about 15, but I'll touch on that more later. So the main thing with this first phase is we are essentially trying to stealth past these enemies. If they spot us, more enemies will spawn in and will try to, well, kill us because they want us dead, because we're trying to escape. Think there is one global cycle that we have to deal with in this, and it is the upcoming checkpoint, not the one I'm currently on in now passing, but the one with these rotating platforms at the very bottom. These are the only part of the level that is globally cycled. All the others are locally cycled. So basically, when you enter the checkpoint, that's when these enemies spawn in. That jump is not intended, obviously, because you jump straight into the enemy ink, but saves us a pretty decent amount of time. We don't want this enemy spotting us, we just wait for a little bit, because otherwise an octopod would spawn in there and definitely break our armor. Then we wait for this enemy to pass us, or should turn away from us, which allows us to go up here. Normally what you could do is wait for a little bit shorter amount of time here and get onto this jump pad early. As I said to myself, I was in complete the run mode. I was looking to just get through this as safely and as complete the run as possible. Up next is where the most infamous skip of Octo Expansion normally is, and that is Octo Shot Skip. Essentially, in this phase, we are trying to collect our weapons that we end up using for the rest of the escape sequence, but we have to navigate essentially an obstacle course to get there. However, Nintendo happened to overlook the fact that if you threw a bomb at a very precise place, about halfway through the level, the area where I just was, there is a very small chance, I think we figured about 1 in 20 optimally, that a small particle of ink will fall down and hit the switch that needs to be inked in order for us to move on. Yes, it is faster. It saves about 20 seconds over not doing it, if done optimally. I could be wrong on that number, because I don't do Octo Shot Skip. And most new runners shouldn't either. It is a completely just insane run to have to, or completely insane trick to have to worry about at, even like top 10 level. Generally speaking, it's recommended that players get all the way up to a time of a 107xx before they even attempt Octo Shot Skip, as has been proven possible by American runner Nobobin. But as you see here, I'm using bombs to go the intended route, which, again, yes, technically is slower than doing Octo Shot Skip. It's a heck of a lot more consistent than actually doing it. I know where to put every single bomb that I throw because, well, again, I've practiced this. As you can see, I have over 140 attempts in this game. Granted, not all of them got to the very end of the run, but, it is what it is. Having to dodge those Rolonium, as they are called, can be a little bit stressful. Normally they're not in your way, but in this case they were a little bit, so having to dodge them, not always the most fun. After this, we are finally able to go to the part of the run where we exit normally, or the part of the stage rather. This is the little switch that can be activated by Octo Shot, skip, and then just a little bit of simple jumps to reach the last enemy that opens up the gate to escape phase 3. This is the most, I would say this is one of the most stressful global cycles to hit. Not quite as much for me because I go with a slightly safer cycle than what world record goes for. The world record, a 1:06:59 by Canadian runner Lantro, goes for a time of 1:58 on the split timer for this phase, and that involves extremely precise movement that, to be entirely honest, I cannot be bothered to learn when I still have pretty noticeable mistakes throughout the entire run. So instead, I go for, I believe it is the 2:08 cycle. I call it the 2:10 because normally the split time ends up being around 2 minutes 10 seconds. It can be faster if I get a good final checkpoint, but I don't really go for it all that often. I do have an armor break there, which thankfully isn't the end of the world because coming up next is a checkpoint, which automatically heals our armor. So again, don't have to worry about it. It's great. Here we have platforms falling like we saw in the first checkpoint. But rather than just getting to one side, not only do we have to get to one side, we have to go back on these and climb back up. So as you can see here, I'm prepping my next movement by pre-inking that second wall, and then going with, going the path I know, killing those two Octo copters just to be safe. Don't want to be risking any weird deaths, and then climbing up as I need to, unlocking the lockbox. Oh yeah, I forgot to explain substrafing, one of that movement tech you see me do occasionally. Substrafing is a way to get up to full movement speed instantly when going in and out of squid form by holding out a sub-weapon of any kind and then going back into your squid form. You're able to instantly get up to maximum speed in whichever direction you're holding. It's pretty useful in most scenarios, but those scenarios can be few and far between in this run. Normally we use it on lockboxes or things that take time to activate. This is Escape Phase 4. This is, I would argue, the most spy-like of them all. We essentially have to dodge these lasers that if our hitbox touches them, we die instantly. Do lose a little bit of time there to not inking up that final wall properly, but I say final wall, that wall properly. Thankfully, that cycle there, pretty easy to move around, even if you're not off on the optimal cycle. We're able to activate that second row of lasers early, and then by bonking our head against the top of the wall there, we're able to fall down early, which is pretty fun. There is a faster strategy here that in theory I could go for and save about 2 to 3 seconds, but at this point I was so worried about finishing the run that I was not taking any risks on jumps that I was not 100% confident in. So while yes, that did lose me a little bit of time over my gold, it was worth it in the end because, hey, I saved 1.7 seconds over my personal best. And in this game, at least in Octo Expansion, it is all about just trying to get these tiny time saves in between any major mistake. This is Phase 5, the diaphragm phase, and this is the last appearance of the permanent special weapon that we see in the run. This is like Maverick Station and the first boss fight, the inkjet once again. And this actually includes a element of the run that we didn't see, or an element of Octo Expansion that we didn't see in the run, and that is these data points. In certain levels, you have to collect a certain number of data points. Normally it's around 8 or so in order to complete the level, and here we use them to actually reach the end. Here I'm able to barely jump up. That strat is a little bit risky, but I was going basically all out as best as I could. Using 4 shots there to ink up the wall. You can sometimes get away with 3. Here, I got extremely nervous because my armor broke, but each time you grab a data point, you do activate a new checkpoint. So I was able to get my armor back very quickly, which I was extremely happy about. And then here we have one of my favorite techs, basically wall riding here to get this early. And then I am on insanely good pace for this penultimate data point. Normally, I get that when it's basically facing strictly downwards. Here, I got it when it was at probably about 3 o'clock relative to the camera. So that is an extremely good pace to be on in this phase, and this ends up being a gold for me, which, man, I was extremely happy about getting it because I knew, okay, phase 6 is coming up. That gives me a little bit more wiggle room to work with. I forget exactly how much of a goal this ends up being, but it is pretty significant. I want to say it ends up being like a 4-second gold or something along those lines. Okay, it's a 3-second gold, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, that's pretty good in something like this. And then this here is what is the single biggest time save that I had in this run. This is Escape Phase 6, the Peristalsis phase. Much like the rocket shooting level and girl power station, we have to defend this orb while transporting it to the very end of the level. This is also the main instance of counting that we see in the run, because we need to go a certain amount of time with shots there in order to get this ink tank that you currently see off to my right. We use this ink tank to allow us in the second checkpoint to basically continue moving the orb without any real delay. And the other nice thing is that whenever we reach a checkpoint, the orb fully reheals. If not, there's probably a good chance that we would absolutely hate this phase and probably take some intentional deaths. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that Octo Trooper there. And then this guy, thankfully get an early kill on him. And then this is when I realized, oh, I'm on really good pace for this phase. This here, I think I was on good enough pace to actually go for a fool's bowling ball skip here. But again, I'm on PB pace. Don't go for a risky strat if you know there's a chance it could kill the run. So I played it safe. While I did lose like a little bit of time to just, going for the risky strat, I'm like, just go for it. You know what you're doing. Make sure you complete the run. So at this point, I know I got all of that time save and maybe a little bit more. I'm not sure if I don't remember if I golded this or not. Golded this phase specifically, but now I'm only on Escape 7, and after that there is no more time loss there's no more time to save in the run, because afterwards it is 9 minutes 9 seconds of auto scrollers, if I remember correctly. So my best possible time here is a 109.51. As I mentioned earlier, as a spoiler, I do not end up getting a 109 this run. I ended up getting a 110 flat. 1 hour, 10 minutes, 0 seconds. So my nerves were through the roof here because I realized, oh, I can actually get the 11th ever 109 in this category. Or be the 11th person to get a 109. But seeing as I mentioned, I choked it. I say choke, it's still a 40-second personal best. I was still really happy with it. It's, I would argue, probably my biggest mistake of the run is, not doing this fight as I should. This is the final skip of the run. This is elevator skip. By jumping off after we see this number 1 go past on the left side, if we jump off the stage, we've reached the game's checkpoint for activating the cutscene that occurs here. So by jumping off and respawning and immediately going into the cutscene, we save 8 seconds I forget who discovered it, but it's really funny because this is the only time. This is the second time we take an intentional death in the game. So this is the Agent 3 fight. Starts off with a splashdown. I shot a little bit early there, and basically, Agent 3 takes a direct bomb hit and 5 shots to kill. And I shot a little bit early, and they were able to dodge out of the way. I ended up making a slight mistake here by not putting Agent 3 in their baller into the correct corner. Thankfully, able to still get a pretty quick phase in on that. Phase 3, they are stationary on this platform, so we're able to use the bomb and just shoot them. And then here, we have the final phase, which is the splashdown heavy phase. And basically, it's the same as the first. I shoot a little bit early. They're able to get their splashdown off. I almost run out of ink here and die, but able to finish off Agent 3. And from the screen that says Agent 3 defeated, it is exactly 9 minutes and vaguely 9 seconds until the end of the run. As you can see there, it says my PB is like 9:08:71. We call it 9:09 for, pretty easy guesstimation times. And as you can see, my time on that split was 1 hour, 51 seconds. If you add 9 minutes, 9 seconds to that, that's 1 hour, 10 minutes flat. And as I had mentioned, normally each phase takes around 20 minutes to complete. And as you can see there, the escape sequence, the phase I have called Haomuku Dashite, after the Vocaloid song King, took around, I think that's 18 minutes, but the first 2 minutes is cutscenes, and there's cutscenes throughout, so it's more like 15 minutes. You get what I'm saying. But from here we have 6 minutes, well now it's 5 minutes, of cutscenes. So, I think back in 2019, Tones Ballones quite famously flossed for all 5 minutes of this. Actually, all 6 minutes, basically. Because it's unskippable cutscene. If this cutscene was skippable, like most cutscenes in this game, this run would actually be under an hour. It's under an hour of true gameplay, which I find pretty interesting. So here we finally see the 2 people that have been helping us out through here, Pearl and Marina, the 2 pop idols of this game. It is also worth mentioning, at the time of me performing this run, obviously I am post-recording this, as you can tell, my voice isn't matching up with my VTuber model. It is worth mentioning that at the exact same time as I was performing this run, Canadian runner Lantro, who holds the world record for Octo expansion, was on world record pace for Splatoon 3 any% restricted, a subcategory of any% that bans certain tricks. At that point, he had 22 out of 23 possible world records in full game categories throughout the series. The last one he needed was this one, was any% restricted in Splatoon 3. And at the same time as I'd perform this run, he gets the world record of 110-21 in that category, completing the Splatoon series sweep in terms of world records. It's the first and so far only time that this achievement has been accomplished by a runner. And it was a little funny because I normally have people supporting me from the community whenever I am on personal best pace, and not having anyone here on my best run ever was a little bit funny to me. Obviously, I hold no beef against Lantro. He is an incredible runner in his own right. He is a great ambassador for the community, and having him there at SGDQ 2023 was an absolute joy to watch. But here we see the main villain, Tartar, or Commander Tartar to be exact, unleashing his plan to actually destroy the world. I am not joking. This is a sentient AI that is looking to destroy the world. Welcome to Splatoon lore. It is screwed up. We also have the Vaporwave statue. For some reason. I don't get it. This game is weird. But yeah, I've always been wanting to show off at a GDQ, or any GDQ for that matter. Show off my love for this game, and with Side Order, the new single player coming out shortly, I think it's a absolutely great time to show off this game and this game specifically, Octo expansion, to a wider audience, because from what we have seen, Side Order is going to involve the same characters that we've seen in Octo expansion. Obviously, since it is likely that we will be in person, obviously I'll be somewhat showing my face. Not that big of a deal, even though I am a VTuber. I can wear masks, well, no, masks are going to be required. What am I saying? But I believe I am currently scheduled to go up against a fellow American Octo expansion runner, Wahoo, in this category, more specifically in Octo expansion, in the relay race. Although maybe not at the exact same time, because, well, it's a relay race. There's going to be times where I'm playing at the same time as someone not me, or not the person I'm going up against, unless we're dead even through the first 2 games, which is highly unlikely. But this would end up being the penultimate category of any percent quadfecta, more specifically the relay race, and would go directly into Splatoon 3 any percent after this final boss fight. This is the Nil statue. This is Commander Tartar's ultimate weapon to destroy Inkopolis and the citizens who inhabit it. Spoiler alert, that plan doesn't work out. Are you even remotely surprised? Why would it work? But the main gimmick of this final boss fight is we have to destroy all 30 bombs that Marina drops onto the statue within 3 minutes. The thing is that these only drop every 30 seconds. So essentially, only have to deal with getting them every 30 seconds, as I mentioned, and we normally have time to save between them. I realize here that I actually forgot one. This was admittedly my first run back second run back in about 2 weeks of not running the category, and I hadn't played the Nil statue at all during that time, so unsurprisingly, I forgot a bomb. Thankfully, got it pretty quickly, and then just go back to my normal pattern. I think I like slightly screwed up my normal pattern here, but I was back into it by the end of this phase. So yeah, I destroyed all the bombs in that phase in 14 seconds out of 30 seconds. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And the only thing that the game checks for is if all the bombs are destroyed at the end of 3 minutes. So in theory, and I've done this before, it's very, very tricky, you are actually able to route exactly all 30 bombs within a minute 30 seconds. So you can spend the first half of this boss fight doing absolutely nothing and be absolutely fine. Obviously, if we are going to be doing the relay race, I might have added doing it in a minute 45 as a donation incentive, but seeing as we are doing a relay race, don't exactly want to be chancing anything, admittedly. This is the second to last run of bombs that we have to destroy. It follows a very simple down, up pattern, and then I go into position for the last minute of the run. This is where we have the most bombs in a single phase with 10, and we have 60 seconds to destroy them all. Normally we get it done in about 30. So as I'm wrapping up, I'd like to say thank you for watching this submission, and I hope that we're able to see the entire Splatoon series shown off at Summer Games Done Quick this year. It would be an absolutely incredible honor to, display the series that I've grown to love so much over the past 7 years of it being out, and that I've speedrun for like the past, I want to say 5 or 6. So yeah, as the last 20 seconds wind down, We have nothing else to do. We have completed all the bombs, or blown up all the bombs. And with that, that is Splatoon 2 Octo Expansion, any % death abuse. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all at Summer Games Done Quick 2023.